Tomorrow morning, within an hour of waking up, go outside and stand there for 10 minutes. Don't look at the sun, just be outside with your eyes open in daylight. That's the whole instruction. And I know exactly how that sounds. It sounds like the emptiest advice on the internet. Get some sunlight. Thank you, very helpful. But underneath that limp little sentence is one of the strangest discoveries in modern biology, and almost nobody has been told about it. Here it is. Sitting in your eye, alongside the cells you see with, there is a third kind of light detector. It was only properly identified in the early 2000s, and it is not connected to vision at all. It doesn't help you see shapes. It doesn't help you see color. It reports one single number to your brain. Roughly, how bright is the world right now? And that number sets the clock that runs your entire body. Not a metaphorical clock, a physical one. A cluster of about 20,000 neurons in your brain that keeps time, and that decides when you get sleepy, when your body temperature falls, when hormones are released, and when you feel like a person. And that clock does not keep perfect time on its own. It drifts. Every single day it needs to be reset, and light is the only thing that resets it. Now, I'm a physicist by training, not a physician, so I'm not going to tell you what your sleep problems are. What I can do is show you the machinery, the detector, the wiring, the clock, and the numbers, especially the numbers, because there's one number here that fools almost everybody. By the end, that empty little sentence, "Get some morning light," will look completely different to you. Let's start with the clock. Section 1, the clock. Deep in your brain, just above where the nerves from your eyes cross over, sits a tiny paired structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. I'll call it the SCN because life is short. It is small, a few cubic millimeters, around 20,000 neurons. For comparison, your brain has something like 86 billion. This is a rounding error of a structure, and it runs your day. What it does is generate a rhythm. Inside each of those neurons, a small set of genes and the proteins they make wind each other up and shut each other down in a loop. That loop takes about a day to complete. That is the tick. And here is the fact I find genuinely wonderful. That loop doesn't take exactly 24 hours. In most people, it runs slightly long, a bit over 24. Your internal day is not the same length as the planet's day, which means that every single day you drift. Left completely alone in constant dim light with no clues, a person's sleep gradually slides later and later, around the clock. This has been measured in people living in isolation for weeks. You can see this most clearly in some people who are totally blind, with no light signal arriving at all. Their sleep cycle free runs. They fall asleep later each night, drift all the way around, and come back. It is a recognized sleep disorder, and its cause is simply an unset clock. So your clock has a systematic error. Every organism with this problem needs a correction signal, something from the outside world that says, here is where the real day is. In biology, that signal has a name, a Zeitgeber, German for time giver, and the strongest one on Earth is light. Section 2, the third detector. Now, for 100 years, the textbook answer for how the eye detects light was simple. Two cell types, rods and cones. Rods are the sensitive ones. They work in near darkness, they don't do color, and they're why everything looks gray at night. Cones need more light and give you color and detail. Together, they make vision. That was the complete picture. Then came an awkward experiment. Researchers worked with mice that had been bred without functioning rods and cones. Visually blind, no image forming at all. And those mice still reset their body clocks to a light cycle. Perfectly. That should not have been possible. If the only light detectors are broken, the light signal has nowhere to go. Something else in the eye was clearly reading the light. What they eventually found was a small population of cells in the retina, around 1 in every 100 of a particular cell type, that contain their own light-sensitive pigment. It's called melanopsin. These cells detect light directly, themselves, without any help, and their wiring tells you everything about their job. Rods and cones send their signal off toward the visual cortex, where images get built. These cells send a thick projection straight to the SCN, straight to the clock. They are also slow, and they don't care about detail. They pool light over time and space and report an average. That's not a flaw, it's the design. You don't want your clock reset by a passing car headlight. You want it reset by the sky. And they are most sensitive to short wavelengths, blue, which makes sense if you think about what the sky is and what a room lit by a light bulb after sunset is not. Section 3. The number that fools everybody. Because now we get to the practical question, isn't the light indoors basically the same as the light outside? It looks the same. Your room is lit. You can see perfectly well. Light intensity is measured in lux. A well-lit office or living room sits somewhere around 100 to 500 lux. That feels bright. You can read, work, see faces. By every subjective measure, it's plenty of light. Now step outside on an overcast, gray, miserable morning. No sun visible at all. That is somewhere around 1,000 to 10,000 lux. And a clear sunny morning is somewhere in the region of 50 to 100,000 lux. That's not a bit brighter than your living room. That's a couple of hundred times brighter. So why doesn't it feel like it? Because your visual system is built to hide this from you. Your pupil narrows, and your retina adapts its sensitivity over a huge range, precisely so that the world looks similarly bright, whatever the actual intensity is. Vision gives you a corrected, normalized picture. Your clock cells do not. They report the raw number. So you can stand in a room that feels perfectly bright while the cells that run your clock are receiving what is, to them, a dim gray evening. This is the single most useful thing in this video. The brightness you feel is not the brightness your clock measures, which is why 10 minutes outside on a dull morning beats an entire day indoors under lights. Section 4. What actually happens when that light lands? Let's follow the morning through. The light arrives, the melanopsin cells fire, the clock receives the message, this is morning, this is the beginning of the day. And it adjusts its phase, nudging itself slightly earlier to cancel out the drift it accumulated overnight. Almost immediately, the clock reinforces something that was already starting, the morning rise in cortisol. Cortisol has a bad reputation as the stress hormone, but this pulse isn't stress. It's the signal to mobilize. Raise blood sugar, raise alertness, start the day. Meanwhile, melatonin, which has been elevated overnight, is shut down. Melatonin isn't a sedative. It's a darkness signal. It's the chemical announcement that night has arrived, and morning light ends that announcement cleanly. But the interesting effect isn't in the morning at all. It's about 14 hours later, because the clock's job is to schedule the evening, and the timing of tonight's melatonin release is set by this morning's light. So the morning walk doesn't make you sleepy. It makes you sleepy on time, roughly a full day later. The lever you pull in the morning moves something that happens in the dark. And the SCN isn't only scheduling sleep. Nearly every organ in your body carries its own local clock: liver, kidneys, gut, immune cells. The SCN is the conductor keeping that orchestra in phase, and light is what the conductor watches. Section 5. The other side of the same mechanism. Because a system that can be set can also be set wrong, and the same cells that help you in the morning work against you at night. The clock doesn't respond to light equally at all hours. Light in the morning pulls it earlier, light late in the evening pushes it later. Same signal, opposite effect, depending on when it lands. So bright light at 11 at night tells your clock that the day is still going, and the day gets extended. Tomorrow morning arrives while your body still thinks it's the middle of the night. That is jet lag, generated at home, without traveling anywhere. And this is where I want to be careful, because the internet has turned this into a panic about screens. The honest position is more boring. A phone at arm's length is a small light source compared to a room full of overhead lighting. The bigger lever in the evening is the total brightness of the room, not the device in your hand. Dimming the overheads and using low lamps does more than any blue light filter setting. The symmetry is neat and worth holding on to. Bright mornings and dim evenings. That's the whole prescription. Everything else is detail. Section 6. The protocol. 5 steps, and the last one is the one people underestimate. Step 1. Go outside within an hour or so of waking. Earlier is better because you're trying to mark the start of the day, and a signal that arrives at noon marks a different day than the one you're living. Step 2. 10 minutes on a bright day, 20 to 30 if it's gray and overcast. You are buying lux multiplied by minutes. When the intensity drops, the time goes up. Step 3, and this is the one people get wrong. Outside, not through a window. Glass cuts the signal, and more importantly, the geometry changes. Indoors, you're receiving light from a small rectangle instead of from the whole sky. Step 4. Sunglasses off. Ordinary glasses and contact lenses are fine. They pass plenty. And never look directly at the sun. You are not aiming at it. You're standing in the light it's throwing everywhere. Step 5. The underestimated one. Do it on the bad days. The overcast morning is exactly when you're most likely to skip it, and exactly when your clock has the least other signal. A gray sky still beats your kitchen by a factor of 10 or more. Now the honest part. Light is a genuinely powerful signal, and this is one of the better established findings in the field. But it is not a treatment for depression. It does not fix insomnia on its own, and it will not compensate for sleeping 4 hours. There are conditions where light is used clinically with specific intensities, timings, and medical supervision. That's a different thing from stepping outside, and if you're dealing with a seasonal or circadian disorder, that's a conversation to have with a doctor. Also, individual variation here is large. Chronotype is partly genetic. If you are a genuine night owl, morning light will shift you, but it will not turn you into a morning person. And no amount of discipline will either. And if you work nights, this whole picture inverts, and the advice becomes genuinely complicated rather than simply reversed. I'm not going to pretend a 10-minute rule solves shift work. So let's assemble the whole machine. Your body runs on a clock that is slightly wrong. A specialized set of cells in your eye, which have nothing to do with seeing, measure the raw brightness of the world. They report to the clock. The clock corrects itself and then schedules your hormones, your temperature, and your sleep for the next 24 hours. And the correction requires nothing from you except being outside while it is light. No equipment, no supplement, no subscription. 10 minutes. Now, if you've watched the others on this channel, you'll notice something has changed. Humming, the doubled breath, cold water on the face, all 3 of those were about the same thing. Pressing the brake on your nervous system right now in the next 60 seconds. This one is different, and I wanted to say so plainly. Light isn't a brake. It's a clock setting. You don't feel it work. Nothing dramatic happens while you stand there. The effect shows up 14 hours later, and it shows up as a normal evening, which makes it much harder to believe in, because we are extremely bad at connecting a cause to an effect half a day away. If humming worked like this, nobody would ever hum. And I think that's the honest reason this advice sounds so weak. Not because the mechanism is weak. The mechanism is one of the most robust in the whole of physiology. It's because the payoff is delayed, and delayed payoffs always sound like nagging. Every one of these videos has ended up at the same place, and this one is no exception. There is machinery inside you that was built long before you arrived, that runs whether you understand it or not, and that has a few exposed inputs: sound, pressure, temperature, and now light. You don't have to believe any of it. The clock will reset tomorrow morning either way. The only question is whether you'll be standing somewhere it can find you.